Hey friends, welcome to Tori Talks TV. I'm Tori.
And I'm Dr. S.
Today we're going to be discussing the new HBO series called Lovecraft Country, episode 1, called Sundown. I'm going to give you a brief summary. Atticus Freeman meets up with his friend Letitia and his uncle George to embark on a road trip across 1950s Jim Crow America in search of his missing father. It stars Jonathan Majors, Jurnee Smollett, and Courtney B. Vance. It's based on the 2016 dark fantasy horror novel by Matt Ruff. This was an attention-grabbing premiere episode.
It's short from the very
Wow.
beginning. Like, I was in. I was like, what is happening here?
I'm all in. Exactly. Well, for example, the opening scene made a lot of sci-fi references. Did you pick up on any?
The one that I recognized on my own was just War of the Worlds, because that's probably like the most popular one.
Right.
But yeah.
I know that the character Atticus talks about how he read Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs, so I know that was in there. There's also a mention of the Roswell UFO incident of 1947. It's really cool, but I will be completely honest, I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but I really liked this.
I was into it. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan either. I kind of just know it in passing, but I'm all about like genre bending and like, so I was like, oh, I'm in. I want to see if this goes down.
For sure. And how refreshing is it to see Black people as the heroes?
Yes.
Yay! So I don't even know where to begin because honestly, it was so fast paced, which I liked. And it just never stopped. And it was like, if you blink, you're going to miss something because there's so many details.
Well, one of the things that I really liked was that we get to see all these Black families and we're really like involved in their stories. Like, I want to know so much more about like the relationship between Hippolyta, I think that's how you pronounce it, and George, and like their relationship, that he's like writing that book, the Green Book, which is like based on like the real Green Book, and like how kind of sounded to me like The Lonely Planet, but for like surviving as a Black person.
Surviving
like
travel, right?
Like how to avoid like the sundown towns, which is like so messed up.
Oh.
But the fact that like she was writing the articles for him and he was just kind of taking the notes. So I'm really excited to get back into like their relationship. And then also their daughter, Dee, I think her name is, and her like comic books, like all that's there. And then on top of that, like woven through is like all the racism. That's just like more frightening than the horror.
Right. I know. And just even just to speak more about the details, what that little girl is writing, the comic is called Orinthia Blue. Orinthia can either mean fair-skinned or to excite.
Ooh.
So I wonder how that's going to go. But I mean, just little details like that. Like if I didn't go look that up, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is.
I think it has something to do with that. So now let's talk about the dynamic between the three main characters, because Atticus and Letitia are friends. And they seem very platonic to me. That's the vibe that I got. And I kind of like that because it gets overused with like the heterosexual man and woman and they fall in love. But it doesn't seem like it's going that way so far. It's been one episode, but
they are so sexy looking though that I'm just like, but I like how they kind of like see each other in a way that they don't recognize each other, because I think they were nerdy high school friends together.
Yes.
Like the science club and stuff, but then they kind of like acknowledge that like, oh, you look different now, but then that's just kind of like pushed away.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, even if they did end up getting together romantically, I'd be fine with that. But I like that it doesn't start off that way, like lovers. and Jurnee Smollett is just beautiful, who plays Letitia. Does anybody remember her as Denise from Full House? Anybody besides me?
No.
I'm a big Full House fan, and she plays one of Michelle's friends. And she's a little girl. And like, I feel like we grew up together because she was on other shows. And I've just seen her grow into this gorgeous woman.
Yeah, and her style is amazing. I kept looking at her little like outfits.
Can we talk about the costumes?
Oh my gosh, so good.
I mean, I know this is a period piece and it's the 1950s, but I feel like they even elevated it a little bit. Like that style, and she even shows her midriff, and Oh my gosh, and it's really tight. It's so beautiful. There were so many scenes so many levels to every scene. When they go, they're on their journey and they go to that restaurant, which the white people there seem very uneasy about, but they just kind of waltz in there like, we can eat, like, why can't we eat? And then that seems to be where the suspense really picked up.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there was like, I was trying to figure out, like, they were trying to kind of test like whether or not, because they were also writing the story while they go on the trip, right? Like for the guidebook, like, can they eat at this diner?
Right.
And then it'll go into the green book as like, yeah, you know, safe place to eat, not safe place. So obviously not a safe place to eat.
No. Yeah, exactly. And then when it really gets crazy, but so cool and fun is the whole sundown. That county, Devon County, I believe it is. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, so it's a horror show, I would say, for sure. It's suspenseful, but then we get to see the sci-fi fantasy, maybe even with those monsters.
Yeah, but when they call them vampires, like, they're like vampire-like, but they're like grosser than any vampire. They've got like eyeballs all over their bodies.
Pretty disgusting. Yeah, I guess their name is Shoggoth. I don't know. Yeah, they're disgusting, and it's so interesting that we call them monsters because, like, you know, there's actually more than one type of monster in this, and that is those white sheriffs, first of all. And just the white people in general, most of them, except that one lady.
Oh, yeah.
Stops that car.
Yes.
When they were chasing them. But how does she stop it?
It was something supernatural, right?
Yes, I think
definitely,
so.
Yes, some type of force field, or I don't know what the heck that was.
And was she helping them? Because she kind of had this devious look on her face, but kind of...
Okay, so remember when Tick went to go find out what happened to his dad, Montrose, and he went to that, I think it was a restaurant, and then the guy was out back having some fun in the alley. And he told him that somebody in a fancy silver car picked Montrose up. So then I'm like, is that her? He called it a Ford, but that was not a Ford.
Fancier than that?
Yeah, it's a bit fancier.
Maybe back then.
Bentley or Rolls Royce or something.
Right, yeah.
So that had to be the same car. I think that's what we're supposed to believe. And then, so she was helping them, so she must be related to like The Secret and that big fancy mansion.
Exactly. That's
white people.
I know. I mean, just when they are in Ardham, and that guy who answers the door, that blonde white guy with the blue eyes, he strangely says, "We've been expecting you, Mr. Freeman. Welcome home."
Yes.
Like, what?
Exactly.
I kind of got a little bit of a Get Out feel. I don't know if you saw that movie, but the brilliant Jordan Peele, who is attached to this as well, he's responsible for that movie, and I got a little bit of a feel of that from it.
Well, I got a little bit of the J.J. Abrams like feel also, with the like, let's throw out a lot of questions at the end that make you go, all right, well, now I have to keep watching.
Of course.
What's happening here?
It's such a good job.
Yeah, totally good. So
yes, I even felt a little bit of a Watchmen feel. Like they had a little bit of that too. But I'm gonna say the first episode of Watchmen I liked, but this first episode I love.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Not to compare, because they're both gonna be.
But there are definitely like overlapping, you know, similarities, like the genre bending and like the racial history, like kind of bending. Like I think there's gonna be some like back and forth in time too. So
is it really?
And the music, like the use of music to like punctuate scenes, like that's definitely there too. So
that was so cool.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
The whole block party when we meet Letitia and her sister, and that whole, like, what's happening with her family too, right? And like her brother, and like they're really mad at her for not making it to her mom's funeral. And then Letty just throws out like, I was saving people's lives. I'm like, what? How are you saving people's lives?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I feel like that's all, you know, there too. I think she's like some type of like civil rights activist saving people's lives.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely felt the strain between, well, you know, her sister for sure.
Yeah. Her brother, I think, was like being abusive.
Yeah.
Because I know Uncle George was telling Atticus not to go inside and get involved. So I was like, oh.
Right. This is such an intriguing show so far. I mean, it's one episode and I'm like, I cannot wait for the next episode.
Same.
Yeah, the cinematography, like we already talked about, the costumes, the music, the acting is superb. It's flawless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, this whole Lovecraftian era or whatever, there's a writer named H.P. Lovecraft, and he was an American writer of horror fiction. He's also a white supremacist.
Super
but,
racist, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's just so many references and tie-ins and all that stuff, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about it and going on this adventure with them.
I am too. I went to HBO's website to kind of learn more, and there was actually a reading list that HBO provided. Like, in order to prepare for the premiere, you should read. It was like a syllabus for a course.
How nice.
Sorry, I didn't know about that before the show started.
A little too late for that.
Don't know if I'm going to get to that, but maybe I'll tackle the cliff notes for the next
That is
episode.
so neat.
Isn't that
This
interesting?
is very involved.
Yeah, so that leads me to believe it's going to be a very entertaining, but very deep, rich, like with lots of things to unpack, like both just like style wise, but then also topically, just given like everything that's going on this year with like racial injustice and like demonstrations and protests. Like, it just seems so like eerily fitting that this would come out at this time.
Crazy. It's kismet.
Yes.
Yes, it's definitely multi-layered, and I can't wait till we talk about episode 2.
Me too.
Which we will do next time.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.